moment her body touched the water, a blinding light erupted, and she transformed into a fish. The river swelled with rage, the waves rising like great hands to pull her under. The villagers fell to their knees in terror as a voice echoed through the night. She was never yours. And just like that, Nyala was gone. The river fell silent. The drought ended, but peace did not return. The village of Nanza was ruled by King Takeda and Queen Adara, a couple admired for their wisdom and kindness, but despite their power and wealth, they had no heir. For 15 years, they prayed, offered sacrifices, and sought the guidance of healers, yet the queen remained barren. Their sorrow deepened as the villagers whispered, "A kingdom without an heir is a kingdom doomed." One fateful night, while it rained heavily, and the kingdom lay asleep, Otega, the king's envious cousin, walked along the riverbanks, his heart heavy with bitterness. Otega, who had always yearned for the throne, despised how the people adored the king. If only the gods had denied him a kingdom as they denied him a child, he muttered. Just then, a strange cry pierced the night air. Otega turned sharply. There, by the edge of the sacred river, lay a baby girl, wrapped in a shimmering golden cloth, her skin damp as if kissed by the river itself. She had the deepest brown eyes he had ever seen, eyes that gleamed like the river under the moonlight. For a moment, Otega hesitated. A child? Abandoned here? His lips curled into a smirk. Perhaps this is my chance. Otega carried the infant to the palace, arriving just as dawn painted the sky with hues of gold and pink. Servants gasped, and word spread swiftly through the corridors. The queen, who had wept so many nights in prayer, fell to her knees at the sight of the child. A child! The gods have heard us, Queen Adara sobbed, cradling the infant close to her chest. The king, though overwhelmed with joy, turned to Otega. "Where did you find her?" Otega lowered his gaze. "By the river, alone." A deep murmur rippled through the room. The river was sacred, and none had ever dared to claim what belonged to it. The king called upon the village chief priest, a man of great wisdom and power. The priest studied the child carefully, his eyes clouded with thought. Then, in a low, foreboding tone, he declared, "This child is a gift from the river goddess, Mami Wada. But hear me well, she is never to return to the river. If she steps into its waters, the goddess will reclaim what is hers." The queen clutched the child tighter, her heart pounding. "Then we shall keep her far from the river. She is ours now." The priest sighed. "The gods do not give without cost, my queen. Guard her well." And so, the child was named Nyala, meaning gift of the gods. She grew up within the palace walls, never knowing the truth of her origins. Years passed, and Nyala grew into a stunning young woman with deep brown skin and eyes like the river's depths. But something about her was different. When she moved, it was as if water itself flowed through her veins. She had an unnatural grace, and sometimes, after touching water, her skin shimmered in the sunlight. Her presence was soothing, like the gentle waves of a calm river, and when she moved, it was as if water flowed with her. But there was one rule she never understood. Why was she forbidden from the river? Her best friend, Azizi, a brave warrior's son, often found her gazing at the water from afar. "Nyala, you must stop this," he warned one evening. "The river is dangerous." Nyala sighed. "But why?" calls to me Azizi. "When I dream, I see a woman with long flowing hair, whispering my name." Azizi's expression darkened. "Then you must never answer her." Azizi was the only one who knew of her secret dreams. Dreams of a woman with long, flowing hair and glowing blue eyes, calling her name from the river. One day, as the village children played by the river, Nyala found herself drawn closer. The sound of rushing water felt like a whisper in her ear. She stepped forward, her feet sinking into the cool mud. Just as she reached out, A strong hand pulled her back. "Nyala, are you crazy?" Aziza hissed, his grip firm around her wrist. "You know the rule." Nyala blinked, realizing how close she had come. Her heart pounded. I just wanted to see." Aziza's eyes darkened. "See what? The goddess taking you? Stay away from this place, Nyala. Promise me." With hesitation, Nyala nodded. But deep inside, she knew she couldn't ignore the pull forever. The village market bustled with life as traders shouted prices and buyers haggled over goods. Near the fishmonger's stall, a group of fishermen had just returned from the river, their baskets brimming with fresh tilapia, catfish, and mudfish. The scent of the river clung to their catch, drawing eager customers who examined the still, lifeless fish. Nyala, carrying a small woven basket of yams, strolled past the stall, barely paying attention to the day's catch. But as she stepped near the fish, something strange happened. The pile of fish began to twitch. At first, just a single catfish flopped weakly, its gills moving as if gasping for air. Then, suddenly, the entire basket erupted with movement. Fish leaped into the air, their silver scales glinting in the sunlight. Some flopped onto the ground, wriggling and thrashing as if they had just been pulled from the river. Gasps and cries filled the market. A fishmonger staggered backward, dropping the knife he had been using to gut a tilapia. An old woman clutched her chest in shock. "What is this?" someone shouted. "It's a bad omen," another voice rang out. Nyala froze, staring at the frenzied fish, her heart pounding. She took a step back, and instantly, as if a spell had been broken, the fish stopped moving. They lay still once more, dead as they had been before. "Did you see that?" someone muttered. "The fish, they came back to life," another whispered. Just then, as if compelled by a force she couldn't understand, Nyala hesitated, then stepped forward again. The moment her foot touched the dusty ground closer to the stall, the fish convulsed. A heavy silence fell over the market. Eyes turned to Nyala, wide with fear and suspicion. "The river," an old fisherman whispered. "She carries its spirit." Whispers spread like wildfire through the crowd. Some muttered prayers, while others glanced nervously toward the palace. And in the shadows, Otega, the envious cousin, watched it all with narrowed eyes. A slow smile spread across his lips. "This," he murmured to himself, "changes everything." On Nyala's 16th birthday, disaster struck. The river began to dry. Fish died, crops withered, and the people of Nyanza grew desperate. The elders called upon the diviner, who cast bones upon the sacred mat. His face turned pale. "The river goddess is angry. She has been denied her child." A heavy silence fell upon the crowd. Then whispers began. "Nyala." That night, Nyala dreamt again. The woman in the river, now sorrowful, whispered, "Come home, my child." The queen, seeing the signs, locked Nyala in her chambers. "You are our daughter. You are not leaving," she wept. But the village elders had made their decision. Nyala had to be returned to the river. It was Nyala's own cousin, the envious and cunning Otega, who sealed her fate. He and a few desperate villagers conspired against her. In a secluded corner of the village, away from the prying eyes of the palace, a dim lantern flickered inside an old, abandoned hut. The atmosphere was heavy with the scent of damp earth and hushed whispers. Around a rough-hewn wooden table sat several of the village's elders and a handful of influential villagers, with one man at the center whose cold, calculating eyes betrayed his ambition, Otega, the king's envious cousin. Otega leaned forward, his voice low and determined. "It's time, my friends. The girl is the key to our prosperity as a people. We cannot just sit back and watch our farms, our livestock, our children, and our wives die out of hunger." An elderly man, known to all as Elder Badu, stroked his grizzled beard and spoke slowly. "The signs are undeniable. The drought, the withering of our crops, all point to a wrong that must be corrected. The gods demand balance. A middle-aged woman, known as Nana Ao, interjected, her eyes darting about nervously. But how can we force her hand? The chief priest warned that if Nyala ever returns to the water, the goddess will reclaim what is hers. Are we to tempt fate? Otega's lips curled into a half-smile. Not force, dear Nana. We must merely guide her. We'll orchestrate an event, a festival, a celebration near the river. We can create an atmosphere so irresistible that she'll be drawn to the water without even knowing it. One of the villagers, a wiry man named Kojo, chimed in. But what if she resists? The girl is wise and spirited, and she's always been warned not to approach the river. She may sense our intentions. Elder Badu raised his voice, his tone grave and measured. There is power in destiny, Kojo. The child of the goddess cannot escape her fate. Once we set the stage, a celebration of her coming of age, the longing in her heart will override every caution. Besides, we have the advantage of numbers. At the right moment, a small group can gently, but decisively, lead her to the water's edge. Nana Ao's eyes widened as she whispered, "And what of the king and queen? They love her dearly. They'd never suspect that any harm could befall her by her own will." Otega's gaze hardened. "The king's sorrow will be our shield. When he sees that the calamities have not ceased, he may be willing to accept drastic measures. We will say that only the will of the gods can restore balance, and that means returning Nyala to the river." Silence fell for a moment as each conspirator absorbed the weight of the plan. The only sound was the soft patter of rain against the hut's roof. Finally, Kojo asked hesitantly, "But what if she cries out for help? What if Azizi or another loyal soul interferes?" Otega's eyes flashed dangerously. "Then we must be prepared. We will ensure that those loyal to the palace are kept at bay. The gathering will be a perfect ruse, an invitation to celebrate, not a trap. When the moment is right, a trusted few among us will move in swiftly. There will be no time for protest, no time for second thoughts." Elder Badu added, his voice echoing with ancient conviction. "The river has always taken what is hers, and today, we return the gift. This is not betrayal. It is the natural order, the fulfillment of a divine command." The conspirators exchanged uneasy glances, the gravity of their actions settling in the dim light. Otega continued, leaning in close as if sharing a sacred secret. "Remember this. Once Nyala steps into the water, the goddess will reclaim her. We are not playing with a mere mortal. We are tampering with destiny. And if the gods decree it, our actions may indeed bring salvation back to the village." A hushed murmur of agreement rippled through the room, tempered by apprehension and ambition. With a final nod from Otega, the conspirators dispersed into the night, each carrying with them the burden and thrill of their dangerous plan. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees as if echoing the fate of the young princess, a fate that none could now turn away from. One night, Otega approached Nyala with a soft voice. "Come, cousin. There is a festival dance by the river. You deserve to enjoy your birthday." Against her better judgment, Nyala followed. But when she arrived at the riverbank, strong hands seized her. She screamed, but it was too late. The villagers threw Nyala into the river. The moment her body touched the water, a blinding light erupted, and she transformed into a fish. The river swelled with rage, the waves rising like great hands to pull her under. The villagers fell to their knees in terror as a voice echoed through the night. She was never yours." And just like that, Nyala was gone. The river fell silent. The drought ended, but peace did not return. King Takeda was inconsolable. The queen refused to eat, her wails filling the palace. The betrayal cut deep. The king declared, "All who conspired against my daughter will pay in blood." One by one, the traitors were executed publicly, their cries of mercy ignored. The executions continued until only one remained, Otega, the envious cousin. When Otag was caught, a day was set for his execution. As he knelt before the executioner, the river began to glow again. A figure rose from the water. It was Nyala, but she was different. Her eyes glowed with wisdom. Her presence radiated power. Gasps filled the air. The queen collapsed in shock. The voice of the river goddess echoed through Nyala. Blood cannot cleanse sorrow. Only love can restore peace. The king, trembling, dropped his sword. He had spilled too much blood. He turned to Nyala, his voice breaking. "My daughter." Nyala smiled softly, placing a hand over his heart. "I have returned, father." The queen rushed forward, sobbing as she embraced Nyala. "I thought I lost you forever." Nyala wiped her mother's tears. "I was never lost, Mama. I was simply waiting to come back." From that day on, Nyala was known as Nyala the Twiceborn, a living legend. She became a bridge between the village and the river, ensuring that Nyanza never again suffered the wrath of the goddess. And so, balance was restored. But when the moon was high and the river glowed, the villagers swore they could see a woman standing upon its surface, watching over them. A reminder that some gifts from the gods were never meant to be taken away. Thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more interesting stories like this. God richly bless you. Catch you in the next video.